Today I'm in Hardin, Missouri, and I want you to watch this video and think about what the people in this town had to go through in 1993. This was a true nightmare, what this town experienced. Well, let's take a look at this. We're at the Hardin County or Hardin Cemetery, and I keep wanting to say Hardin County because Hardin County is the county I live in Iowa. This is actually Hardin Cemetery in Hardin, Missouri, and you can see a big plaque that they have put up here about the 1993 flood and the terrible things that they went through to deal with it. This was the town cemetery. The town is about 500 people, and still today is about 500 people. And so everybody that was buried from this town was buried in this cemetery, basically. And a levee broke during the flood of 93, and it completely gutted the center of this cemetery. And you can see still the remnants of this. It actually dug a 30-foot trough and made a lake, a permanent lake right here. And this whole cemetery was completely flooded. And there was about 1,500 people buried here to start with, and about half of them were disinterred by the water. Their caskets, their vaults were floating around like boats, and they lost all orientation on who these people were. So they had to deal with just a true nightmare in the fact that not only was the town's history demolished, but they had completely lost track of all the people, because once they were removed from their location in the cemetery, one body looked just like the other, and it was a major deal to try to distinguish who was who. They finally figured out who, I think around 140 of the people were, and then the rest of them are buried in more of a kind of mass grave. They ended up buying some extra farmland, and we're going to go look at that too, to where they have a very organized mass burial. But can you imagine having the loved ones that you buried and expected to be there, forever, just disinterred and gone? And a lot of the bodies just were not found, and they have no clue where they're at. Some of them, I think, some bones and stuff were found 20 miles away from here. Now, the crazy thing about this is this almost happened again this year, which is 2019. And when you drive into this town is, you can tell it's pretty low. So it's going to flood, and I'm sure there's levees all around it to try to keep that from happening. But it evidently almost happened again this year. But what a sad deal for these people. Now here's a section of the cemetery where you can see just a whole bunch of markers that are just clustered together. And these must just be ones that were, the graves were washed away, and they've actually just mounted the monuments here. This is unbelievable to think about this. The bodies are gone, but the actual tombstones or markers are here in this cluster. That's kind of a nice way they've done it, though, to where at least there's a visual representation of it. I apologize, guys, if the wind is bothering the recording today. It's fairly windy here, but this is kind of amazing. This whole area is just a cluster of monuments that are people that were lost. Their bodies were lost. Well, I actually talked to the police chief here and asked him about all this, and these are all the monuments that were salvaged, and the mass interment was right here too. He said that this area, when all this was going on, you could see the sand boiling out of the ground. And what he meant by that was there was so much water pressure underground that it was bubbling up through the sand. It's just amazing how this whole town was demolished. I mean, the town was underwater. The downtown area was, and then the cemetery, you know, just gets wiped out right here. He said there's still equipment buried 30 feet down in this lake that they couldn't get out. And he said periodically they still find bones that end up working their way up along the banks of this lake that's in here right now. What a sad story this is, but I thought you guys might want to see where all this happened. There are some documentaries on Amazon Prime. There's one called Buried Secrets, and check that out. That really has a detailed account of what happened, and I sure hope you've enjoyed it. I have been amazed looking at the damage that was done here and how these people dealt with it. So thank you so much for watching, and I'm sorry that the wind was so bad this time. I'm trying to do everything I can to make it to where it doesn't interfere with the audio, but there's the wind's blowing 25 miles an hour out here. So thanks again for watching.